Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Lucore Automotive. This is my disgusting AMC 304 block that you saw me tear apart, hopefully in a previous issue. We've learned a couple of things since that last video was filmed by cleaning some things up. So this is the original 304 block that was in my car when I purchased it. It was disgusting, it was open to the environment, so all kinds of things ended up in the oil and everywhere, essentially. The block seems to have been punched 30 over. The pistons on all 8 cylinders are 30 over pistons, which is good. They seem to be in pretty reasonably good shape. The rods seem to be the original rods that were in there. Part of the reason we were seeing that the bearings looked pretty good was the fact that they were all Cleveite bearings. The rod bearings, the main bearings, the cam bearings, all Cleveite. So it seems as if somebody in the past has rebuilt this motor and then maybe it didn't get taken very good care of, or who knows what. So anyway, at this point in time, we're going to toss this block into that acid bath. The crankshaft has been turned 10-10, so we're going to put that in the acid bath as well. Start cleaning everything up, and then we're going to see what happens. So, if you're interested, it's going to be time to start building this thing, or at least machining it. Stay tuned.
Boing, 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 boing.
And here we go, take a bath. Into the acid bath she goes. This thing is covered in oil, covered in schmutz, covered in I don't know what. So, step one, and our machinist will appreciate us for this, is cleaning it. So all of the plugs are out of it, the coolant drain plugs, all of the oil galley plugs are out of it, all of the other things that are non-steel, non-iron are out of it. So we can soak all of them in this, and it breaks down all of the schmutz and stuff that's on this thing. And it will literally sit in this thing for, what do you think, like 2 days?
About 5 hours.
5 hours? 2 days, 5 hours, same diff. This also has the ability to agitate, so it will actually rock and hopefully get all this junk loose, and then we can see exactly what we've got, and then it's going to go off to Mike at M&M Head Service for him to check and make sure everything's in good shape. Let me talk about the heads here in just a second. You want the crankshaft?
I'll do the crankshaft separately so it's not getting beaky and stuff.
Okay, so what I said as far as the heads go. Here are our head gaskets that came off this thing. Clearly not the stock gaskets, these are MLS. And they're Felpro. So somebody who originally rebuilt this motor actually did it the right way. And other than the fact that I just know that they're Felpro gaskets, I can actually even see where the Felpro stamp on the MLS has actually embedded itself into the surface of the head. So it says Felpro right there. It does look like there are radius marks on the head from where it's probably been cut down and resurfaced, which is hopefully a good thing, which means hopefully that this surface is still true and flat, because there's not a ton of meat that we want to take off of these. I don't know how many times you can really pass these things and still be okay, but ideally as little as possible. Now, one thing that is an option is, typically speaking, you either take meat or material off either the head surface or off of the block top, and by doing that you reduce the combustion chamber, which increases your compression ratio. These cars in 1979 had somewhere between like an 8 and 8.2 to 1 compression, so they could run on literally anything. Great for the fact that you can run on terrible fuels, not great for making power. So we're going to end up having to probably CC these heads to see how big this chamber is, if these heads are in good shape, so that we can have an idea as far as what we've got. But as I said in the original video with the teardown, is it actually looks not terrible as far as the heads go. Yes, these are disgusting and they're covered in goo, but none of them seem to be bent. None of them seem to be damaged in any way. The springs seem to be pretty new. None of them have any rust on them at all. So it's possible maybe somebody did upgrade the valve or the springs when they were in here the last time in doing head work, which would also be awesome, because one of the ways you can get more power out of these things is allow them to RPM a little bit better. In order to do that, you need to have better springs in it. So maybe we're good to go on that. So all in all, heads not that terrible of a shape. These I'm going to be taking directly to Mike at M&M Head Service, just as they are. Sorry, Mike, you're going to get a bunch of scuzzy heads. It is part of your business. But I'm going to let Mike do all the disassembly here and make sure that everything is good to go as far as the valve train goes. And he will pressure check and test the heads, and then we can see if the heads are in good shape. If they are in good shape, we're going to probably bring them back here and do a little bit of blending, a little bit of porting, because it's essentially free horsepower. There are a lot of things that you can do inside these heads to increase airflow, and it's an easy way to be able to get more power. And it doesn't cost anything, just a bit and some time, and do it yourselves. So we'll see once we get these things done, and then obviously we got to clean them back up once we've done all that stuff. So that's where we are on the heads. Now on the pistons, as I said in the intro to this, we did discover that these are 30 over pistons, and I will put this up here so you can see it. Super zoom in button. 30 over. 30 over. 030. So clearly somebody has been in here and done these pistons in the past. The rods do seem like they are the original rods that were in the car. Even the piston rings actually still are pretty in decent shape. Now we're not going to reuse the piston rings no matter what, but if the block seems to be true, which we will know soonish, and we can run it with some 30 over pistons, I may be in luck. Now something I did note again in the previous video is none of the big end of the rods have been machined down. And typically speaking, when you're going to be doing a balanced rotating assembly, you're going to be taking material off of these rods. Now there's no casting, there's no grinding on the casting flash. All the casting flash is still here. Everything seems to be all original. So what most likely happened is ended up having to replace the pistons, went 30 over, got a set of pistons, hung them on a naked set of rods, and just threw it in there ready to rock and roll. Didn't go through the whole balancing process. For me, that's going to be tough to do, because any rotating assembly I've ever messed with or used as my own, I've always balanced everything out. You don't really have to, but it's a good idea. Again, the most efficient way of making power is to reduce the amount of rotating assembly, and if you can make it smoother and more balanced, the better. But it's a question of, do I spend money on getting it all done, given this is supposed to be a budget build, which I will 100% admit I'm not very good at. So that's where we are as far as the rods, pistons, heads, block, head gaskets, all that fun stuff. Now another thing I did mention in this intro was that the bearings were in pretty good shape. Rod bearings, main bearings, all of them are Cleveite, which, again, let's go for the zoom in button. Can you see it? Does it say Cleveite? Yeah. Cleveite. So Cleveite rod bearings, Cleveite main bearings. There is some wear on the bearing surface itself of the mains and on the rods. Mains are a little bit more worn. The only thing that you're really going to notice any kind of wear on the mains are on the thrust side. On the thrust bearings, those are definitely a bit more worn out. Manual transmission car, that's pretty common. So all of that stuff, good signs. Nothing I'm super worried about at this point in time. In all honesty, this very well could have been somebody built a reasonably high performance 304 in the past, and then it just never got taken care of. The other thing that's kind of kicking around in my brain here is the fact that when I found this car, it had the intake manifold and carb disappeared from it. It's possible in the past that maybe somebody had put a 4-barrel on this car, and the intake manifold for a 4-barrel AMC is kind of expensive. They're like $300, $350. So it's possible maybe somebody took it off of this 304 and put it on another motor, maybe a 360, 390, 401, because they're all the same thing. So it's very possible that that's what happened. I doubt anybody would have swapped or would have stolen the 2-barrel that came on these things. So maybe that's what happened. Maybe somebody just scavenged it for another AMC project. Now, as far as bad goes, give me a second. As far as bad goes, harmonic balancer. It's got a little bit of pooch, which is going to be really hard to show you on the camera here, but you can see right here where it goes in, and then on this side where it kind of pooches out. That is where the rubber that joins the centerpiece of the balancer to the outside piece of the balancer is failing, and probably not smart to reuse. Last thing I want to do is put this motor together and then have a stupid part fail and take me all out. So this is something we're going to have to deal with. I have heard that it is tricky to get a hold of a harmonic balancer for these things. So we're going to start doing some homework on what I should do with that. Anybody out there in the AMC world that's got some options, some ideas, please chime in, let me know what you think. Can I just steal the one off my other 304 and swap that one onto this one? You know, is it a situation where I need to, if I'm going to do balancing, I've got to balance all of it together? Can I get one in the aftermarket that's not going to cost me $500? I guess I can't probably get one of these from Jegs, but unfortunately, harmonic balancer is not in good shape. So, yeah, we're going to keep on cleaning stuff and see what we find out. The block is mostly clean. It's doing a lot better than it was before. We're going to clean all of our bolts and everything like that and get everything done. Now, one thing I haven't done yet is I have not taken the drive gear off of the camshaft yet. It's a press-on. I haven't pulled that off yet to inspect the camshaft and see if there's any kind of identification numbers on it at all. Doesn't really matter if there's any identification numbers on it at all. Anyway, just for my own knowledge, I'd like to know whether or not this is an aftermarket camshaft. I'm kind of feeling like it is, but we're going to be putting a new cam and new lifters in it anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Just I'd like to know as far as what it is. But we're going to keep cleaning and getting stuff done, and then I'm going to load these things up in the Volvo and take them to Mike at M&M Head Service and get these things redone. So Doc, how she look?
Better. I'm actually going to turn it over in the tank to see if we can get some of the sediment out of the bottoms of the coolant passages. You always end up with sediment in the bottoms of these coolant galleys. Turn it over and cook it a little bit longer. It's pretty clean already, all things considered.
Most of the schmutz has come off the block.
Right. Got some main caps.
Oh, my hands are dirty again.
What's that?
I said, oh, my hands are dirty again.
Yeah, that's gonna happen.
So, oil pan actually turned out really nice. A little bit of RTV here that didn't get eaten, but otherwise it's in pretty good shape. There's a little bit of schmutz left on the bottom, but we can get that out. Lion's share is clean. That's good. Interestingly, I pointed this out a little bit ago, it's dented. Basically exactly where the other one is when I accidentally dropped it.
Yeah, that's what happens when you drop your engine on the ground. It dents the oil pan.
Maybe somebody previously dropped it. Crankshaft looks pretty good. We're gonna throw a little polish on it and see if it cleans up. Lots and lots of cleaning.
What, you mean we're not just gonna order a crate motor from the local hot rod shop and have it installed?
Jegs doesn't have AMC crate motors.
Maybe just Summit.
Yeah.
Or any other wholesale part supplier. Oh, that's what you do.
I see various things floating to the surface. Various things floating to the surface. Oh, main caps are looking a lot better. All the disgusting is knocked off of them. Bolts are nice and clean. Yeah! So, the nice thing is we have this tank, so we can clean all of our individual bolts. So, knocks all the schmutz off. We can reuse most of the old hardware. One thing I personally have been terrible about is reusing old hardware. A lot of the times when I've done other builds in the past, I just say, oh, hell with it, we're going to throw it all away and we're going to get all brand new hardware. What you really don't understand is how expensive it is to buy all brand new hardware. You can easily have in a build a couple of $100 in bolts, just in fasteners. Let alone if you go ARP stuff, which is even more expensive. So in this case, because we're going to try to do a budget build, I'm going to try to reuse as many of these fasteners as I possibly can and save as much money as possible. So we are taking individual things and running them in and getting them all clean. And making sure I don't mess up my organization for all my bolts so I don't lose anything. So this block is actually pretty dang clean at this point in time. I'm going to pull this thing out, let it rest, and then wash it off for the night. And then we're going to start this process again tomorrow morning. We're going to put it back in, let it go through the agitation process one more time, get everything a little bit more clean. And then we'll see where we are. I can see cross-hatching on the cylinder walls now, though, and that makes me happy. Well, we're a lot cleaner than we were. The cylinder bores actually look pretty good. We have chased with thread chaser every single one of the bolt holes, the head bolts, all of the exterior bolts, the transmission bolts, all the bolt holes, all the coolant passages. Everything's been chased, everything's been cleaned. Cylinder bores are a little scuzzy, but they're pretty good. So the only question we have at this point in time is with the block, is anything cracked, which I don't see anything cracked, and is the bore true? One thing we have learned in the past is just because it's been machined doesn't necessarily machined well. Unfortunately, if there's taper to those cylinder walls or it wasn't done very well, we could still end up with an engine that's a piece of junk. So we're going to eventually take this thing up to Mike and have him check the block to make sure all of our cylinder bores are good and that they'll match up with those aftermarket pistons that we found. Now, right now, the heads are at M&M Head Service. I dropped those off already, and they are being cleaned, or disassembled, cleaned, and then they're going to be pressure checked. And we're going to go through an inventory of what's in those heads and what kind of state we're in. I'm hoping that they're in good shape. They just need to be cleaned up and a little bit of minor work done. If that's the case, we're going to build this 304 on a budget build. If not, we're not going to build this 304 on a budget build. We're going to build a 360 and probably not do it on a budget. So that's where we are at this point in time. It's going to be a couple of days before we can update you guys on more progress on this 304 build, but we wanted to get this one done for you, so we got it all clean, we got it all done. We could show you how beautiful it is and update you on the progress. So there you go. It's going to be a little bit before we get another 304 update, but at least we're making progress. Hopefully we can get it run by spring. Thank you much for watching. As always, drop a comment in the comment section below. Please click on that subscribe button for build stuff, race stuff, cool stuff, car stuff, truck stuff, all kinds of stuff. Click on that like button. Lets YouTube know that you're actually paying attention to what we do. We'll see you on the next one.